So, good evening, everyone. It is wonderful to see you. Thank you for joining us for tonight's Monday evening speaker series. Tonight, we're going to be hearing LinkedIn post optimization, boost engagement with proven strategies. I have been very excited about this session. This is one that I know folks have asked for, a topic I think we don't get to talk about enough when talking about LinkedIn. So, looking forward to this. But let me get started with some of our announcements. I think I know most of you, but my name is Laura Kepsel. I'm the Director of Speaker Engagement. And 40 Plus of Greater Washington is a 70-year-old nonprofit dedicated to helping experienced professionals confidently communicate their value and successfully navigate career transitions. Programs like this one are part of our mission to support your success. If you're looking to sharpen your skills, expand your network, or boost your resume, we would love for you to get involved with us as a volunteer. So visit the support tab on 40plusdc.org website to learn more. There's a form you can fill out and we can help arrange for whatever type of skill you're looking to gain. We also recommend checking out the job postings on our career portal. We have multiple people that reach out and say, hey, we really like the work 40 Plus does. Can you post this so we can see some of your applicants? So make sure to check that out. Additionally, subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch past sessions or future updates. Our amazing Gaddafi, our IT master, does little bite-sized pieces of our past presentations. You can see the most significant parts broken up into little segments. So definitely recommend checking that out. Note for May 5th, we are not going to have a session, but on Monday, May 12th, the following Monday, we're going to welcome Heike Heyman, who is a seasoned career counselor, and she will be doing a session on the job search puzzle. Do you have all the pieces? So make sure to put that in your calendar. It's going to be posted soon. And just remember, May 5th, we're not meeting. But let me get into tonight's session. So our session is all about optimizing your LinkedIn presence and boosting engagement. And we are so excited to welcome one of our amazing board members, Dr. Frieda Wiley. She is the owner and founder of Medvon Consulting, LLC and Stories Unleashed Publishing, LLC. Dr. Wiley is a communications consultant, public speaker, LinkedIn strategist, and best-selling author who also serves on the 40 Plus board. She has been a LinkedIn user since 2005, so she knows the ins and outs of LinkedIn, and that's exactly what we want. And she brings extensive experience helping professionals transform their online presence through various industries. Sorry. Through her work with Medvon Consulting, Stories Unleashed Publishing, Dr. Wiley combines analytical insights with practical application to help clients craft compelling narratives that stand out in competitive environments. So tonight she's going to share her expertise to elevate our LinkedIns. So without further ado, I cannot wait to pass it over to the amazing Dr. Frieda Wiley.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Laura, and thank you to everyone who's dialing in tonight after what I'm assuming is a manic Monday. Hopefully not too manic, though. So yes, I'm really excited to give this presentation because as a LinkedIn user of now 20 years, I can't believe it's been that long, I have really seen it evolve. And in order to continue to get traction and get results, it's important to kind of refine and tweak what we know about the platform. So I will jump right in. The objectives for today will, as Laura kind of alluded to earlier, be to share key strategies for how to optimize our LinkedIn posts and to use these tools that LinkedIn has provided to enhance LinkedIn engagement. I will also share some tips on how to increase your visibility and garner more attention from various stakeholders or potential people of interest. And I'll also share some best practices for crafting posts that resonate with your network. One of the ways that I will help to kind of pull it all together is that at the end, I will actually share some of my own posts and recent posts and how I look at the data or the results and the information that I pull from that to tweak and inform the posts and the types of content that I create to share on LinkedIn in the future. So I will just kind of share initially the history of LinkedIn. It was originally founded in 2002 as a free platform. I joined LinkedIn in 2005. I believe that you had to have an introduction, but a friend from Germany shared it with me. And back then, it was much more difficult to network on LinkedIn compared to what it is now, because in order to reach out to, let's say, someone you didn't really know or with whom you had no rapport, no email address or any contact information, you actually had to get a referral from someone in your network. And sometimes you might land, sometimes you might not. So that was a little wonky. At that same time, they introduced some paid prescription or subscription options. And at that point, they didn't have as many tiers of subscriptions as what they do now that kind of expand your ability to network, make cold calls or whatnot. In 2010 would see the acquisition of SlideShare, which is a wonderful platform to create slide content. Depending on what your use of LinkedIn is, you might have seen where some people have posted slides from SlideShare and have gotten wonderful engagement. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on in this presentation. In addition, in 2016, in my opinion, is where I saw, at least from my own perspective, a massive shift in LinkedIn with the Microsoft acquisition of the corporation. So since that time, the lines of LinkedIn's use in terms of the content, the presentation and whatnot have been a little bit blurred and mirror more and more what you might see on Instagram or Facebook. And so some people have become concerned that the content, because of those blurred lines where some of it is more personal and social and more of like a, look at me type delivery, some people are concerned that the platform is not as effective when it comes to professional networking. But the reality is that more than 1/10 of the world's population is on LinkedIn. So with more than 1 billion users, which it achieved that status in 2024, it's still a very viable tool for professional networking, whether it is for job searching or whether it is for your business selling services or just other networking professional pursuits. So the first part will be just about optimizing your LinkedIn posts. Before I jump into that, as a refresher for some of you who may not have attended some of the other LinkedIn sessions, I do want to briefly mention why creating LinkedIn content is important or can be helpful for your career. So in the case of a job seeker, there are some recruiters who will actually be searching for profiles. And if you have not posted regularly or recently, you're not going to come up as high on LinkedIn's SEO or search engine optimization. So, if they are only looking at the first, and I'm throwing out a random number, but the first 25, 50, maybe even 100 candidates, if you haven't posted in 3 or 4 months, you may not make that list at all. So that's why it's important to try to post if for no reason other than that, even if you're not actively looking for a job, because networking and visibility are important. You're only as strong as your network and who knows you. It's not about who you know, it's about who knows you. The other thing is it can be used as a marketing tool if you have a side hustle or a gig or a business. So it's a great way to establish your brand and let people know who you are, and especially depending on who your target audience is. If you're selling clothes or something like that, then you may not necessarily want to use LinkedIn, although as the lines continue to be blurred between that, TikTok and Instagram, we do see some things like that. But if nothing else, like if you're selling a professional consulting service or product, then LinkedIn is definitely a must. So the first thing I would say is to use the KISS method. And I'm sure that this is something you have probably heard before. Keep it simple, silly, or some people say stupid. I prefer to say silly because it sounds a little negative to say stupid. Come on. So yes, the posts should be written ideally in an engaging way. You want posts that grab attention. I'll talk about that a little bit more, that are fun and easy to read, because even highly educated people, very academic people, everyone enjoys plain language. And you can definitely create content that is written in an engaging way without talking down to a person. Using simplified language does not mean talking down to someone, contrary to popular belief. I would say, as a quick side note, in the case of AI, because sometimes people use AI for content, people can recognize when content is created via AI. So I'm not saying don't use it. Perhaps use it to generate ideas and maybe as a starting point for content, especially if you don't particularly enjoy writing, and then put your own flavor into it. Show your personality. Let people know who you are. You want to engage your readers with a hook or a catchy introduction. And so in the journalism space, for example, a hook is essentially, well, they also have other words for it, but it's basically something that's catchy that grabs the attention of your reader. Because the reality is, in our increasingly fast-paced world, we have a shorter attention span, and it is harder to get a person's attention. So that would be the initial thing. I will say that a phrase that I used quite a bit a few years ago that I have retired because I just overdid it was, I have a confession or I have a secret, because yeah, Laura's laughing. So it's a professional platform. So for me to say I have a secret, then people are more likely to be like, what? You're going to share your secret on a professional platform? Tell me more. So I was playing on that, images and visuals, because we are still visual creatures. So if you can include images, if you do video, I would recommend having the captions, because oftentimes content that has captions will fare better than video content that doesn't have captions, because sometimes people want to read it. They may be in a public place where they cannot hear, or there's something going on, the reason why they are not listening to the audio. Also, the optimal length, it can vary, but you do want to aim for shorter posts if you can in general. Something that I would be maybe like 4 to 6 sentences, or about maybe no more than 250 words, but there are exceptions. And it's also okay to vary the length of your content. Maybe, especially after you have been posting for a while and your SEO is high enough, you can experiment and get away with using longer content at times if you want. And I also put the disclaimer to not be surprised if you happen to notice that there are some pieces that go viral that don't follow the rules. You may see somebody who has, they've used every possible character. They've exceeded the character limit, if you can do that. And they have all this stuff, and the post is a mess, but somehow they have like 250 likes and it's gone viral. But don't let that discourage you.
Frieda, we have one question in the chat. Would you
Sure.
answer it now or say, okay. So what are examples of hooks or catchy introductions that you would suggest?
So hooks, sometimes it can be something, depending on what your goals are, it could be something as simple as an announcement. It could be, for example, I did one recently that did very well. I have exciting news. Or you could start with a question that's kind of like a brain teaser. Those are good ways. And actually, that's a great way to engage responses. When you have people commenting and making comments and liking, then that's also going to boost your SEO and help the post to rank higher and help you to become more visible. And then if you respond to those posts, that helps to demonstrate your authority and expertise. And there's also an algorithm to that too. Like if you respond within a certain amount of time, usually within an hour, and this is where it can get a little hairy, but responding within an hour of the first 2 comments. Great question. Watching tone and topic. So I spoke about plain language. Now, I do want to talk a little bit just really quickly about the exception to that rule, where if you have a group to which you belong and you have posted, it's going to be understood that the people who were in this particular special interest group on LinkedIn have a baseline level of knowledge. So you might be able to use some industry buzzwords, but before you start trying to wow people with your language, I would recommend that you kind of go through and get a pulse of what the overall tone of the posts from people who've been in the group for a while look like before really changing the narrative from kind of using plain language. And it's totally okay to share posts that do have a humanizing tone. I do tend to be a rather private person, but every now and then I'll put something in fun that I've done because you want to show different elements of your personality. People hire people that they like. And you want to show that you are a full spectrum, full bodied person. So, maybe you'll share a post about maybe you went hiking or you went to this special event and here are some insights. So that kind of segues into this next slide, talking about the types of topics, newsworthy topics that are relevant to your industry that other people would find helpful. Because again, you are demonstrating your value. You want to provide meaningful content, and you want to demonstrate that you are a person who's not only likable, but trustworthy. In addition, information that might have come from another post. So there's an option to just directly repost without making comments, but there's also an option for you to say something beforehand. I would not rely too much on reposting because that can also hurt your SEO. And if you do repost, I would recommend at least having like a little brief sentence or two about that post, just to kind of prime your audience. All right, so when it comes to posting, I mentioned before that it's important to post regularly. So a minimum of once a week, I would recommend, especially if you are new to posting on LinkedIn or you have some nervousness about it. Sometimes the hardest part is getting started, and it's kind of like a fitness routine. If you're a person who doesn't work out, you want to groom yourself for success, and you're much more likely to stick with this habit if you start slowly, right? Like in healthcare, we'll say start low and go slow. That's a phrase. So same thing with this. So start with once a week, kind of get some data points and figure out what lands with your audience or your target audience, and then kind of build from there. Now, in terms of how often to post, there are different schools of thought. I have my own thoughts based on my own data, but some people say you should post at least 4 times a week. I don't really personally recommend that. I think twice a week is plenty. You also don't want to be the person who's annoying, because then there is an option where people can mute you or silence you. And what if the people who choose to do that may be the people who really want to hear from you? There's also a little bit of variance in terms of what's considered the ideal time to post. There's someone I know who says that the golden hour of posting is between 2 and 4 p.m. I personally have never experienced that. I typically find that it's between 8 to 10. I've also seen it be between 8 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, but I try to get my posts out. I'm now back in Central Standard Time, so I try to get mine out by 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Also, do not embed links in the post. So if you came across an article that you want to share, don't put it right in the post. Instead, put it in the comments section. Why? Because it drives traffic away from your post and from LinkedIn if you put it right in the post. And that ultimately hurts your SEO. If you do plan to post more regularly, try not to post twice in the same day, or if so, space it out by a few hours, because if you post more frequently in the course of a day, you'll find that your posts don't do well, or you'll have one that does really well, and then maybe the one that came behind it that maybe had a greater sense of urgency. Maybe you wanted to share a job posting, for example. It may not get a lot of traction. And there's some different schools of thought about how many hashtags to use. I find that in general, 3 hashtags do really well, although I recently had an outlier post where I had more than that did very well. So, but generally 3, but again, remember I said there can be exceptions. Oh, trying to get this slide to move. Okay, so now the tools of engagement on increasing traction. If you think about it, some of the things I've already talked about are parts of it, but LinkedIn has a lot of tools that can really help you. So first I'll talk about like the different types of content that you can experiment with to get engagement and introduce yourself and increase your reach. The first being articles, which I've kind of covered as a baseline. So different types of articles, there are LinkedIn posts you can create. And there's also like a section where you can actually post articles. Some people create newsletters too. And newsletters are really great ways to grow your audience and engagement. The cadence to maintain it can be tricky. So I would say if you are planning to go that route, I would make sure that you had at least maybe 6 months of content planned out, knowing that you can always have articles that you add that are newer, but having evergreen content, because you never know when you might get busy and fall behind, and it can really catch up. And I say this as someone who used to write columns. So it's a similar thing. Video content does very well as well for reasons I previously mentioned. LinkedIn also has polls. So I've had some interesting experiences with the polls over the past several years. And sometimes people may not even like or comment on my article, but there'll be a ton of people who respond to the polls. SlideShare, as I mentioned, was acquired by LinkedIn, and that's an easy way to demonstrate value and create content that is visually appealing with limited writing. So that is definitely something worth exploring. And then, of course, LinkedIn Live. Sometimes people offer these workshops or webinars. They're kind of like little podcasts that go live on LinkedIn, and it's a way to demonstrate expertise, demonstrate your public speaking skills, and sell to the public, or just really promote who you are and your brand. So there are many options. So LinkedIn, after you create a post, it has an option to click on, and I apologize, I think the slide actually might be out of order, but it allows you to assess how the post did. So this is taken from one of my recent posts, and I have had posts, my most popular post actually got more than 100,000 views, and this was about 2 years ago. And I had posted it in a specific group, and I was trying to pull that data, but I think it went back too far. But this is a recent post. And so like, even though I'm someone who has historically used LinkedIn a lot over the years, if I go through periods where I'm not posting as much, then I kind of have to reestablish myself in the algorithm, so to rank higher and have more of my posts get higher engagement. So that's part of the reason why I'm sharing these different things. So you'll see my number of followers, and it'll say like here, it's a small increase of 0.2%, but that's important because it's also telling me that as a result of my outreach, or the result of my posts, I'm getting more people to interact or engage or connect with me for whatever. They have a weekly tracker, and actually took this from today. And with it being Monday, I would expect these numbers to be lower anyway, because it's the first day of the week. You'll watch these numbers change as the week progresses. So also sharing, it shows how many people have viewed my profile recently. LinkedIn has changed some of its information, because it used to be that it would show you the 90-day trajectory of people viewing, and you could go back and see, unless the person has an anonymous viewing option, different people who viewed and more information about the industries from which they came. And post impressions, they used to call it something else, but now they're post impressions. And as you can see, it's hyperlinked, so I can click on that to see who has been clicking on my posts, and that's going to give me more information. And then, of course, I've appeared in X amount of searches. And I have seen, since I have started back posting, that I'm getting more people viewing my profile, more people searching for me. LinkedIn also has, this is related, but a partial side note, it has what's called a social selling index that gives us additional information that we can use to tweak what we do and how we show up on LinkedIn and how we want to create our brand. So it uses 4 components of our to create the score, which would be how well you've established your brand, your ability to find the right people, which would be the people to whom you reach out to connect or maybe send an email or message. Engaging with insights. So that's commenting on posts, building relationships. It's a component of that. So you can see that I've done very well and I have the maximum number of points on building relationships, but I'm a little weak when it comes to finding the right people. So that's good information. And so the score is a composite of all of these points ranking me against other people in the same industry. Yeah, I now have a score of 72. The highest I've ever had it was about 80. Yeah. And so revisiting the analytics from the different posts, I use the post data to tailor the content. It tells me I got this many impressions. The number of impressions is down. This is from a post from a previous week, because if it's a new post, then it's not going to have a decrease in the number of impressions there. And then it shows the members reached. And you can see a timeline here where there was a spike in content. So then I can go back and look at this spike and say, okay, what happened on that day? Was it when I created a certain post that was very popular? Was there something else, some particular event that happened? Did I comment on someone else's post and maybe it got a lot of engagement? Because that's actually a new feature to LinkedIn now. Like if you comment on someone's post, if it gets a certain amount of engagement, they now have impressions that they track for that too. So how do we hit this out of the park? So I kind of alluded to post impressions. It tells you the number of views, by whom, their location, and their industry. You want to chart that progress. And you don't have to be so granular about it, but I do encourage you, especially when you're first starting out, to look at this information, because if you look at it, it gives you a sense of what kind of content lands with people. So here, this is one of my most popular recent posts. So I announced that I'll be attending a campaign school. And you know, I'm used to posts getting more impressions than this, and it's not always about that. You know, you can have many impressions, a lot of likes and things. If your goal is to sell, that doesn't necessarily translate to converting or selling. And that's important to know too. But if nothing else, it's important to make sure that I'm ranking high enough in the SEO so that the right people can find me. That's one of the most important things, especially in this day and age. So you'll see that, and I took this from maybe a few hours ago. So it has 103 likes now, 31 comments, and almost 2,500 impressions. So what made it popular? I started out with exciting news, and I don't usually post like that. So going back to what someone had asked about the hook, people who know my voice, that kind of got their attention. And I even got some personal notes about that. So I have posted enough and established enough of my brand that people kind of have a sense of what to expect from me at this point. So that made it jump out. It's a bit of a personal note because I'm excited about this. I'm pleased to announce blah, blah, blah. And then from here, you see the reactions, the comments, and you can actually export this data too. So if you're the type where you're very analytical, some kind of data analyst or mathematician, you can collect this data and you can use AI or Excel, and you can run analytics and glean some insights on how you want to tailor your content. I just do kind of a visual qualitative and quantitative view. It shows me the types of people who are looking. So this for me is a little bit different. It shows senior. Um, I'm used to having marketing directors, CEOs, and executive directors look at my content. So that tells me something. It also shows, and you can click through more of this information when you look at in the platform for yourself, but it gives me an idea of who is interacting with this content. And sometimes you will see that people will click on your profile, and if they don't have a privacy setting, then that's an opportunity for a discussion. Hey, I saw that you might have looked at my profile recently and just wondered if I could help you with anything, or if I could answer any questions about my background. So again, this is a way to network. More information. So I'm looking at a low trend. So these are posts that didn't fare very well, and I'll talk about why just now. Okay, so this is total number of impressions. So it's a composite of all of the content that I had posted that is getting some kind of interaction. Someone even went and looked at something from 2 years ago I saw. So it's not necessarily how well one particular post did. And that was just me checking in last week. Remember I talked about the golden hour, or the golden window of time. So this was a post that on purpose, I submitted at 1:54 p.m. last Thursday, and it only has 48 impressions. And it was short. I shared something helpful, self-care. And it's one of those things where I kind of wondered if the one person who hearted that post because they felt sorry for me. That's what social media does for you. It creates many questions in your head. So then going back to a different post that, given the fact that I have started to ramp up posting more frequently again, it gives me an opportunity to explore, why did this post get good engagement? This is a post about vitamin D. And I summarized a top level of some information from a new study, and talking about how vitamin D can help people who have multiple sclerosis, and kind of delving a little bit into the controversy between conventional Western medicine versus more holistic care and functional medicine. So I created a dialogue. So that right there incited a response and engagement with the content, and people reacted accordingly. In this case, this was a post that I had created. This is the second screenshot for that same post. Usually I get higher responses or votes when it comes to my polls. But this was also something that I posted outside of what I call the golden hours of posting. So this is just to show you how I would look at this information. And sometimes you can have a post, again, where there can be outliers that break all the rules for successful engagement or higher engagement. You can also have a post that you feel you hit out of the park, and for some reason, it's just not landing. So just be prepared. But those situations really are more exceptions than the norm. So I used today as an example too. So I got 69 impressions and for this post, and I posted it maybe about 4 or 5 hours ago. So it's Monday, first of all. Everyone has Mondayitis, most people I know. Give people a chance to kind of get settled into the routine and ready to go. So I will likely have something I post tomorrow. I haven't really decided what that will be, but I, again, try to post on Tuesdays and Thursdays if I don't do any other days, just because the responses typically are better, at least in my experience. You want to look at old posts too. So I pointed out how you can export data. This is an old post from about 2 years ago that got 156 likes. And I'm not sure how many impressions, because this is back when they had a different algorithm. They called it something else instead of impressions. But it's important to kind of go back and look at that and kind of see the evolution. And sometimes too, when you're seeding content ideas, you can revisit previous topics, and that will kind of help you come up with more content ideas. It really, you don't have to work that hard to create content. Not everything needs to be an essay. And remember, we live in this world where people read less and less anyway. So in summary, I want to reiterate that consistency is key. Find a rhythm that works for you. We're looking for impactful content because even though we are in this age of AI, people still want to feel human, and content that resonates with people is more likely to get engagement and a reaction. That said, you want to listen to your audience. Pay attention to how they respond to and react to your content, especially as you start to post more regularly. And recognize, as I mentioned before, that the number of likes and comments do not always convert. And sometimes you can have a post that doesn't perform very well in your mind that actually resonates with more people. And it may lead to, I don't know, a job interview or discussion for that, or a client. So that is my presentation. And I see 5 now comments, and I'm trying to see if I can, for some reason, okay.
Yeah, there were some good ones, but they weren't questions. So I thought we would just hold on to some of those. I'm happy to read them out loud too.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So you commented that you love starting yours with a question, even a question combined with a statistic or a quote that's kind of a mic drop. Yes, that's also very a newsy approach to content. Love that, Laura.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so is it pronounced Zohar? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Says that I agree that simple language is best. Ernest Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea. Oh my goodness, yes. Written in 4th grade language, won the Pulitzer Prize. Yes, that's super true. And several years ago, I went to this plain language writing workshop, and it was taught by this PhD researcher. And he said that even highly educated people prefer to read things written in plain language. So truer words have never been spoken. Oh, okay, Tammy, thank you for this. The highest SSI score you can achieve without purchasing Sales Navigator is 80. Okay, so does that mean that with Sales Navigator, you could achieve 100? I would like to know.
Yes, it's the 2 middle of the 4 of criteria that actually would allow you to reach 100. The top and bottom, the maximum score you can get is 25.
Thank you for that share. I just learned something. Wow. Okay. Could you please restate the golden hours for posting? Yes, Veronica. So the golden hours would be between 8 and 10 a.m. Eastern, typically on Tuesdays and Thursdays. All right. Are there any other questions?
Yes, ask away, folks. Tammy, over to you.
Yeah, a question about where you post. Are you posting only from your feed or also in groups?
I do both. I've been posting less in groups lately just because I have some different objectives. So actually, that's a great question too, because repurposing content is a very important topic, especially when you're trying to come up with ideas and there's that pressure in today's society, right? But if you use the exact same article, or like you created a post and you post the exact same thing elsewhere, that can affect your SEO, even in LinkedIn. But that still doesn't mean that it can't do well.
Right. As a job seeker, I was realizing that, I was posting in my professional groups, and that's all great because that's sort of like preaching to the choir. But I realized like I have to actually post where my hiring managers are going to go, and those aren't necessarily the same groups that I'm a more active member of. So things like the leadership think tank, which believe it or not has like 1.8 million group members, like that's a better place to put the same post, given that I want to attract the attention of leaders.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's very smart. And um, I would definitely encourage you to explore that and then also see if there are ways that you could even repurpose or seed some of that content into the general LinkedIn platform. Or maybe there's a comment that someone made that you could turn into a post. There's a lot of opportunity there.
That's excellent. Marcus, over to you.
Um, I hate to put a negative spin on what I'm about to ask. Two things.
Okay.
Number one, you touched on this a little bit. I understand privacy concerns to social media, but this question, however, is why do some LinkedIn members who I want to connect to ask if I know their email addresses? It's almost like these members I'm trying to connect to are blocking me from their profile.
So there are a few reasons, to my knowledge, I have had that happen as well. So if you are, for example, trying to reach out to the optimal number of people every week or the maximum allowed by your account, then there is such a thing as LinkedIn jail, believe it or not. They don't officially call it that, but if you reach out to too many people, sometimes it will do that because um, I guess like their AI is looking and some of your habits and the way that you contact people, it may think is suspicious. Sometimes people also flag. So, if you have marked enough people as suspicious or spammy, then the algorithm can sometimes be a little finicky about future outreaches, even though let's say that's your initial outreach to that person. So I don't view that as a negative thing at all. It's a very valid question.
Okay. The second question I have, not many people recommend this, but do you recommend verifying your LinkedIn profile? Because I have done that with mine. I want to make sure I keep it secure and I want to make sure that other people can reach me
Yeah.
easily.
Well, so my opinion may not necessarily be popular. You asked me for my opinion. I will say I have not verified my LinkedIn as of yet, but I've also been on LinkedIn since 2005. And so even though I don't know the innards, so to speak, of how they have it set up, I would like to think the fact that I've been on LinkedIn for so long and the fact that I have a decent number of connections and followers, that should be enough to establish credence and credibility to who I am. And that's my reason for not verifying.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Of
Thank you for
course.
answering both of those questions.
Absolutely.
Oh, I wanted to touch on the verification really quick that now they're using Clear to verify everyone like they do at the airport. But prior to that, they didn't. I think it was just like an email verification. So that's how I verified my profile. Now it's more in depth. So if you don't want to use Clear, you don't need to verify. I think it's pros and cons, just like Frieda was saying. I think it depends on your content, how much is posted. But if you have a verification, it is not negative at all. That's only a good thing.
I think, Laura, I've used what you've worked with as well. I think I've used Clear as well to verify recently my profile.
Oh, good. Okay, so Marcus can speak on
I
that.
like that.
Oh, good. Perfect. Excellent. And I saw some comments in the chat. So Mark, what are your thoughts on a paid subscription? What levels are there currently?
Yeah, so they have what about 4 levels? They change it periodically. Like I've had several times when they've added on new subscriptions where mine would be like a legacy subscription that would be grandfathered in, and I would just keep it until they kicked me out because they were always more expensive. I think that first of all, you can be successful without paid subscriptions, and I can actually share some tips that would probably be like a totally different presentation, but on how to navigate that. But yes, like, okay, I have Sales Navigator now. I originally did not want to because it's the most expensive of any membership I've ever had on LinkedIn. But it allows me to search for many more people. It allows me to network in a different way. So I looked at it as, okay, yeah, I think it's maybe 12, it might be $1,500 a year. It's kind of pricey, but I'm looking at the value. So if I land a client because I'm able to have some conversations to, I believe it was Marcus's point earlier about reaching out to people, because it allows you to contact far more people than what you could with an unpaid subscription. Then, the membership, if it works out for just one person, in my opinion, the membership pays for it. It also helps to facilitate market research, which is also a very important element to job searching. And so, so I'd have to go back into my account to tell you the specific levels currently, but I think there are it's typically like 4 or 5 levels now, but they keep changing it. But you can go into your account settings and explore the different types if that's helpful.
I'll do a quick search on it to see if I can find out, but I think that was an excellent point too. I think I always use personally premium if I got to the point that I was in LinkedIn jail. I had looked up too many people and I was getting mad about it. Then I did the opportunity to either do the 1 free month, or since I've had it before, I did the 50% off 3 months. So I think if you're just needing a temporary thing, you're in an active job search, I think premium can be helpful for those situations, but it's not something you necessarily need to maintain all year. Just like when you're in an active job search, I think it's especially helpful.
Yeah, I definitely agree, Laura. And so Tammy was asking, can I share best practices for engagement? So I kind of covered this. So part of it comes from posting regularly. So your posts will automatically rank higher and be more visible, not only to potential stakeholders or potential employers, clients, what have you, or potential partners, in terms of your network, but just in general. So that makes you more visible, therefore more accessible, because there are some people who won't reach out if they don't see that you've been active recently, because they'll assume that their message to you wouldn't reach you because you're not on LinkedIn from the way that they perceived it. And then making sure that you have the, some buzzwords, like the hashtags can be helpful. My feature changes, but there was a time where it would show me the number of people who were following certain hashtags or who had written content around certain hashtags, much like Instagram and Facebook. But for some reason, it's not showing up either on my cell phone or on my computer. So that's one thing. Okay. Oh, thank you for sharing that, Laura, about the different tiers. Yeah. So those are some things. And, again, like making sure if you're going to share a link to a post, not posting it within the article itself, but rather in the comment section.
I heard that if you choose to comment on other people's posts, that comment should be at least 12 words. I think that's, the LinkedIn algorithm has determined that, anything shorter than that, like, oh, I agree, or great point, is not enough to basically create like a volley, right? Where people are.
Yeah, no, that's right, Tammy. And that's a good point too, because that also reminds me of something else. When we're talking about LinkedIn jail and authenticity, that's what it's looking at, because I agree, just to get some traction is really not enough, right? So LinkedIn has cracked down. So there again, when I talked about creating more personable content that is more humanized, that's another reason why that's important. And it also looks for comment chains. So like if LinkedIn will look to see if the same 10, 15, 20 people are commenting on each other's posts all the time. So there again, that speaks to their increasing commitment to diversified content, authentic content, and not just people commenting for the sake of just trying to boost a post, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we call them posting parties, where people basically, like or comment on each other's posts, and LinkedIn's definitely frowning on that. I mean, I think if you're a big contributor, they don't really, have a problem. But I've seen people get, go to LinkedIn jail for at 20 people. you know, and that's sort of an
Yeah.
indication for them to say, hey, I tagged you, come comment on my post. So LinkedIn kind of looks at that, you know, in a bad way.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are advantages and disadvantages to that, right? So, if you are obviously trying to get more engagement and you've struggled with it, sometimes it can be helpful to have that support, but we just kind of have to be mindful of that. Because you don't want to get flagged if you can avoid it. I mean, you can be let out of jail, right? But it's just the idea. And, you know, once you've been flagged, then sometimes that could possibly make you a little bit more suspicious in the future. Oh, wait, I think I missed some more.
Oh, no, I think that was me. I put in the different ones. Oh, Howard was saying that he didn't see the 50% off in his account. I found something for that. If anyone is in the same boat, you don't see the 50%, just let me know. I'll hesitate to post it in the main chat just because it's a lot of text. Unless you all want to see it, then I'm happy to do it. But are there any other questions, folks? Feel free. Oh, Veronica, when you speak to SEO on LinkedIn, are you referring to what keywords people that talk about my topic are using?
So, SEO can mean keywords. It's not limited to keywords. Just the fact that you rank higher, that's what I'm speaking to. And so that's part of the reason why I was very careful to say LinkedIn has its own SEO, meaning apart from Google, apart from, you know, YouTube or whatever. So some of the tactics and strategies you use to make yourself more visible in LinkedIn's version of search engine optimization will be a little bit different. So it's not necessarily going to always be about keywords. Can you post too much? Yes, you absolutely can. And so that's kind of what I had talked about earlier, where I said, well, you know, some people say you should post at least 4 times a week. Well, me personally, I don't have the time, energy, or interest in posting 4 times a week. I don't like it when I get posts all the time from people. And in the same way people can tell when posts are being generated by AI, they can also tell when you're posting just for the sake of posting. You want to post enough to be visible, but you don't want to annoy your audience, because again, somebody may mute you, or you'll be off-putting to the people who might actually be your people. You don't want that to happen.
Frieda, could you remind us of how much you were saying to post weekly or bi-weekly, depending on if you're an active social media user versus not?
Okay, yeah. So if you're not active and you're new to doing this, I would recommend starting at once a week. I think that you can do well posting twice a week. You know, what I'm saying is you can post without it being a major time suck and still get good results. And then that's another reason why I spent the time that I did walking through how I look at some of my posts and the information that I can get, because that helps you to tailor to whoever your target audience is. And it gives you insights, what kind of content is landing with people and what's not. So then you can start tweaking accordingly. So I think, at least from my experience with not only myself, but people I've helped coach through this process, I think that it's really something that, yes, there are certain guidelines to follow for success, but there also is an element of individuality at play. The ideal number. Oh yeah, 3 hashtags in general, 3 to 5. I personally typically cap it at 3. And should hashtags be used within the body of the post or reserved toward the end? I put my hashtags at the end because this is just my personal thought, but I feel like if you put that hashtags like littering it throughout the article or your post, then it kind of gives off, excuse me, a salesy approach, like, oh, you're doing this because you want it to go viral. And some people, depending on how hashtag happy you are, some people can view it as distracting. So I'm trying to make it as easy to the reader. They don't necessarily have to see the hashtags, because those posts are going to populate according to whatever hashtag I use anyway.
That is such a great point. It can look really distracting. I've tried both approaches before, and I think I always like it better at the bottom where it's getting to the right people, but it's not dragging my eye to each hashtag. Excellent. Any other questions, folks? I am loving these. There's lots of good tips in here too. If there's any other tips too that you all have found useful, feel free to share those in the chat or speak out to the group.
I just mentioned that you can actually schedule posts, which is really handy.
That is
Thank
handy.
you for that. I meant to mention that. I'm so sorry. Yes.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Especially if you're extra busy Tuesday, Thursday. That is really good.
Yeah. Yeah. And just optimizing your time. And you could actually, if you wanted to chunk your time, you could schedule your LinkedIn posts for the next month or so. Yeah.
That is a good point. Frieda, are you comfortable with us sharing your slides, or would you prefer we just do the recording?
I'm okay with you sharing the slides.
Okay, perfect. Then Giselle, to your question, I will send out this PowerPoint to everyone. Frieda, you can just send it to me at your leisure. And for the recording, that will be posted on our YouTube sometime in the next 2 weeks or so. So I'll make sure that when Gaddafi posts it, we shoot another email out to tell folks that it's ready to view.
Doctor, in addition to yourself, do you recommend that we kind of check out any other poster on LinkedIn that's probably really good at this?
Oh, yeah. So there are some people who are considered LinkedIn top voices, although some people argue that it doesn't really carry weight. But I would definitely recommend following some of those people. And if you want, I can drop a few names. I can probably send them to Laura to include with the slides, if that's helpful.
That would be great. Thank you.
That's perfect. I just put one in the chat that I immediately thought of named Adam Broda. He is excellent at using that slide share method that you were mentioning. So he does a good job there.
Yeah, there are many people who actually like sometimes I can go down a rabbit hole because it's addictive. It's like the Cliff's notes of what I need to know, right? So
Exactly. It's so much easier. And a lot of times they're including handouts and stuff in these. Excellent. Any other questions or thoughts, folks? Okay. Well, I would make sure take a note of the people on this call. What better way to add new LinkedIn connections than the people in this room together? So actually, how about if you are comfortable, feel free to throw your LinkedIn URL in the chat just so we can have a little follow party. And just as a reminder to save the chat, if you click on those 3 dots on the top, you can click save chat and it will save after. And I just,
my LinkedIn, I'm sorry.
oh, perfect, Frieda. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Veronica. Excellent. I'm going to add you all right now. Perfect. Any other questions, folks? Okay. If not, then again, feel free to save the chat. And we will be sending out the presentation probably tomorrow at some point. So be on the lookout there. And I will keep you all posted when we post to our YouTube. You also can subscribe, hit the notification bell, then you'll know when I know. To save the chat, if you open the chat box and you click on the 3 dots on the top right, you can click Save Chat. Once that opens, it's the very first one there. And then it should automatically save as soon as we end the meeting. I'll also have it saved, so if anyone doesn't have it and they need it, just shoot an email to 40+ and I'll make sure you get it.
Thank you for having me. I hope you all found it helpful.
Definitely. I think we see a part 2 in our future is what I'm already thinking.
I see what you did there.
Oh, yes. I cannot help myself. This was stuff I hadn't even heard of as a career counselor, so you really went above and beyond. So excellent work, Frieda, and thank you all again for being here. I hope to see you on May 12th, and don't hesitate to reach out if you all have follow-up questions. But have a good rest of your night.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.